Today we'll be cleaning the carburetor on a Bayou 220, and we've got the complete carburetor off. And I put the throttle cable cap back on and the choke cap, just so you know what we're talking about here. So you'll all, if you've gotten this far, you've already pulled it from the throttle cable, but it's just a cap there for your slide. You've got your spring and an O-ring, and then your slide and needle in the bottom there. Now, this one, here's your slide, and there's your needle down inside there. Now this needle can be adjusted. There's different settings here depending on your altitude. Okay, and you can adjust that as needed. So there's also a clip like this that'll sit down on top of this needle to hold it in. And it's a spring-loaded clip, so it'll put some pressure on it when you go back together. So we'll set those pieces aside, and then we'll go to the choke. Here's your plastic cap here. You want to make sure that that cap, when you're taking it on and off, that it gets put on correctly, so you don't ruin those threads. Those threads are plastic, they get ruined very easily. There's your spring there, and then down inside there is your plunger. A lot of times these won't fall out when you're taking them apart, so I grabbed a small pair of needle nose pliers, reach down in there and pull it out. Now these should slide freely. You don't want them catching. If they're too loose in there, you want to replace it. If it's stuck in there, obviously replace it. But sometimes you can take a bigger screwdriver like this and turn that plunger in there to try to break it free. If it's stuck, if the carburetor's been sitting for a while, then you can just pull that out that way. Now to pull the bowl off of this carburetor, there's 4 Phillips screws in the bottom. And if this is the only thing that you're wanting to do on the carburetor, you can actually do it with it on the four-wheeler. But so you can see what we're doing, I pulled it off. And you can get a little bit cleaner if you pull it off, that way you can see everything. So we pulled these 4 Phillips screws off, and we pulled the bowl off here. And this is the bowl. You want to make sure this is clean from any debris, and make sure there's no buildup or anything in there. So I'm using GumOut Carb&Choke cleaner, and you just spray it in there. And then what I do is spray it in there, take compressed air, and blow it out. Okay, you want to blow through there. That's your drain, your overflow drain. So we take and we blow that out, and you can blow through this, and it'll come out this bottom nipple here. So that's the bowl of this carburetor. Now we've got your float here, we've got your main jet here, and we've got your pilot jet here, we've got your air fuel screw here. So to take the pilot jet out, you use a little bit bigger screwdriver, and these will be different sizes depending on altitude again. This time it came out with the holder and the O-ring. So you want to make sure that O-ring is good. You want to make sure that when you're cleaning this out, you can look through this jet into light and make sure you can see daylight through it. So you take the same thing, compressed or carb cleaner, then hit it with compressed air and blow through it. Now we've got the pilot jet here. Use a smaller screwdriver for this one. This is a smaller hole yet, so if you have problems starting, more than likely this is your problem. So make sure you blow through it there. If the carb cleaner goes through it, obviously you've blown through the jet. You can look down it again into light. Make sure that you can see the daylight through it. So to pull your bowl here, or your float here, this pin will just slide in and out. If it doesn't, you can use a little pick and tap it out that way, but you want to make sure that you don't put too much pressure on these tabs. They have a tendency to break. So there's your float there. It's an adjustable float. So if it's leaking fuel, you can either replace your needle, which sometimes that needs to happen. There's a lot of times where there's a ring around there that'll cause it to, if it's grooved, you'll want to replace it. Okay, and you've got a replaceable seat on here. So needle and seat, you can replace it that way. You pull that Phillips screw, pull that seat out. This bowl looks good. Make sure there's no cracks. I clean off any debris, and you can use carb cleaner again and then compressed air to clean that. Now you want to make sure that you can blow through this with compressed air, and you can spray carb cleaner down through it first, but you want to make sure when you blow through there that it comes out of this here. This is your intake fuel nipple there. You can feel the air coming through there. Same way going that way. You want to make sure there's no debris caught up in there. Now the whole carburetor assembly you can take and spray with Carb&Choke cleaner. You want to make sure that you blow through all the ports to make sure they're clean. Again through these. Okay, now we have your air fuel screw here. And what you want to do when you're taking this out, you want to screw it all the way in first. So what I do is half turn, 1, 1.5. So it's 1.5 turns out. That way you know what it was set at. You can reset it by just turning this out then. So half screw 1, 1.5. And that's adjusting your air fuel screw there. You want to make sure this is all completely cleaned out. You can blow through that with carb cleaner. Here's your idle adjust here, and